So welcome to our elementary SSECC meeting, our winter meeting. One more time, I'll put the slides in, and then Scott, I'm tasking you with putting it in again if more people come in, okay?
You got it.
Appreciate it. Okay. So let's get rolling. So our agenda today, we will look quickly at informational items and then look kind of at the state of affair of effective science instruction right now, quickly, what research and national reports are saying. Then we have a national presenter here who's amazing. So we're really lucky to have her. And she's going to talk about this idea of science instruction and literacy, which has been our focus in elementary SSECC last year and this year. And really, that helps it be equitable for all students when we can help science and literacy work together. And then we have a look at effective science instruction, how that interacts with three-dimensional resource share, building connections, and a district resource share. We have model teachers from across the state that have videoed lessons for us. And we have some new observation rubrics to watch the model lessons and use the observation rubrics. So I'm excited for that piece as well. So this is a packed, fabulous day. Well, let's get rolling. Just norms, keep your microphones muted except when speaking. There's usually not a problem here. Also, I think something that's really important is to assume goodwill, doing the best they can. So try to look at things from their perspective by actively listening to say, why are they saying what they're saying? How might that benefit me? And then be present as much as possible. So if you can turn on your camera, it's helpful to see people's faces, to see people's reactions. So as much as possible. Sometimes I realize you can't because you have bandwidth issues or you have little kids running around in the background or something. But if you can, it's helpful to be able to see people. As you know, as educators, it's hard to teach to a wall. It's much easier to teach when you actually get, some people's faces. Okay. So our elementary advisory team for this year, they've worked hard with me to put this together. So I want to really thank them. So Chris Cayley, Michael Hammond-Todd, Sarah Gailey, Brittany Mandarino, Maggie Millar, and Lynn Gutzweiler. They have all really helped today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You'll see them in breakout rooms a little bit later, helping facilitate those. So a big thanks to them, jazz hands. Woo, thank you, people. Informational items. Just some quick updates before we get into the really cool stuff. So we needed to change our spring SSECC date. We ended up with a national conference on the date of our last one. So it's changed to Friday, May 13th. It will be an in-person meeting at USBE down in Basement West. Elementary, I picked the morning. Sorry, I'm an early riser. So we're going to go 8:30 to 10:30, have a 15-minute break. Then will be our combined elementary and secondary meeting from 10:45 to 12:45. We are done. We have an early start to our weekend. Yay. Secondary people, you'll be hanging in there till 3:30. We will be done. If you're just in elementary. So hopefully it was okay to pick morning. That was what I picked. All right, so professional learning opportunities. Oh, well, it helps if you have the right year. You get the idea. It's this year. I'm just, a little COVID hungover right now. We are doing the Open Educational Resource textbook. This is the last time we'll get money to revise those. This is it. So for those textbooks that are new because of our seed standards, especially K-5 that have only been just written last year, the revision is needed. If you could help with that, the link, this rust color, you can click on there for a Google form. Anyone who could help, or if you have teachers who you would recommend, send this to them and have them sign up. I do need about 20 people. It will all be done. There'll be a 2-hour orientation on March 17th. Then all the works will be done. We'll be putting people in teams with a checklist of things to revise. And then it will all be independent work for up to 24 hours each at $25 an hour. So if you could help with that, we need you, because this is it. Whatever we end up with after this revision, that's what we've got for our books, okay? If you have feedback of things that need to change, please put it in the feedback link so that we can address that. We want to make sure that we hit the issues that there are. Core guide revision, it's the same thing. I love our core guides, by the way. They're fabulous. Really love them. But again, they only were, you know, we've only had them just the first draft. They're in the first draft. There are some things that we need to look at and revise, and a few that we didn't catch the first time through. If you could help with that, we're going to help with that on May 2nd and 3rd. Most likely, those are what we're planning on the dates to be. We'll see. You know, unless there's some major issue, maybe we'll change it. We thought about changing it to Thursday, Friday, but we have board meetings, so we can't do that. And later in the month, we have a national meeting. So it looks like it's May 2nd and 3rd. We're hoping subs might be more available. If you can help, that would be great. If you have teachers who would be good, please put them on. Again, you can sign up if you click on the the rust colored link, or if you have feedback, like we noticed this standard has the wrong DCI or some freaky, you know, thing. Please put that in our online feedback form so that we can get that ready to address. All right. Formative assessment cluster revision. We have finished that. They are awesome. Love our revisions. Well, our first generation were great, but the revisions are really great. Hang on, I'm going to take you out and show you just a second. So when you go into a page and you see all the core guides, if you clicked on a core guide, like 3rd grade, fancy that's there. Where you will find all of the assessment clusters. So pick a standard, maybe. It's just being slow. Oh, there we go. And that should take you to that standard. So here we have standard 3rd grade, strand 1, standard 1. We scroll down in that standard to the section on assessment exemplars, formative assessment. If you click on it, you will see now, I don't know if you can see that it's red, the title's red. That means it's the revised cluster. And they are awesome, really good clusters. They are all uploaded and done K through 4th grade. We're just putting the final touches on 5th and 6th grade. You'll know that they are the new improved revised clusters when the title's red. So there'll be the title in red and you'll go, oh, it's the new cluster. Okay. So watch for 5th and 6th grade to appear quickly as well. So thanks everyone who's helped on that. Excellent job. MicroCredentials for the elementary science and STEM endorsements. There is a cohort going through working on those. They're doing one of each a month. It's a lot of work. They are amazing. As they go through the micro-credential and we get them fixed in Midas, they will open up and be available for your educators to work on through Midas. They're all online, free, except for a $20 application fee that goes to the reviewer. So watch for those to start coming out. Also, I have had word that BYU and Weber State University are working on creating endorsement courses for the elementary science endorsement to be starting sometime within the next year. So watch for more information on that. So good things happening in elementary. We have things moving right along and moving forward. Okay, so if you have any questions, please put them in the shared notes, which you'll find the link to at the first of our PowerPoint. Or Scott can put the link in the chat, I bet. Thank you, Scott. He's a tech wizard. He'll do it for me. Are there any questions right now about anything that we just talked about in what's happening in elementary science?
Melissa, I just have a quick question that has come up with the science endorsement. Do any of the STEM endorsement courses count towards the science endorsement? I have a few teachers who started the STEM endorsement and just kind of want to use some of those to then do the science endorsement. Does that make sense?
Yes. If you will put that note in the questions document, Annette, I will reply to that with the link that shows alignment. A lot of them do. There are two that don't, like math doesn't align to anything. But there are many of them that do. And that's a great option for people who are partway through, who want to transition over, finish a science endorsement, and then actually get a real STEM endorsement. Because right now our STEM endorsement is mostly a science endorsement with one math class. So I think our two new endorsements are a much better way for educators to get a great foundational knowledge. So good question, Annette. All right, my friends, we are going to move into our state of affairs section. The theme for today, picked by our committee, is science instruction incorporating authentic science communication. Now, we chose not to use the word literacy because we did not want this to be confused with phonics. We're not talking about phonics here. So we realize, especially our K-3 elementary students need explicit phonics instruction. This isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about how do we authentically speak and listen, read and write in science. Those are authentic literacy skills that are part of the ELA standards, help support that in our science instruction. So to get us going, I want to just talk about the state of affair, because it's interesting. The Chief Council of State School Officers put out a recent report just in 2021 where they looked at research here, and I've linked the research. This research looked at 94 classrooms, fourth grade classrooms, and they compared isolated science and literacy instruction and integrated to see what happened in student outcomes. And as you can see, in the blue were the students in the integrated courses, and the black were the ones where they were siloed with just science and ELA on its own, so siloed courses. I think to me, the biggest thought was, look at this writing. That's a big deal. Big difference in outcomes for writing. And if we're thinking about this idea of we have so many multilingual learners, and that's one of the biggest growing groups that we have in education right now. This idea of how can we support language acquisition, this idea of their vocabulary increasing, really is saying, when we look at integrated literacy in science, it's effective, it supports their vocabulary, all students' vocabulary, but I think our multilingual learners really need that support. And some of our lower socioeconomic that just haven't been, they just haven't had a chance to have different experiences where they might get this vocabulary. So you can read the research, but research is pointing towards, we need to think about how to really integrate authentic literacy and science together. So what they came up with, their conclusions were a model of teaching early elementary teachers how to integrate the teaching of literacy with science, found that students in the trained teachers' classrooms showed significant gains in nationally normed literacy, mathematics, and reading assessment. So that's a big deal. That's not a small sample. This is a large sample. And this is the recommendation. Again, from the Council of chief state school officers. So not science, we're saying school officers. So this is a widespread report. They also say that to teach in an integrated manner, teachers need to understand the teaching of each subject and have specific training on methods of integration, hence what this meeting is going to be about today. However, most early elementary teachers have not been trained in science, science-specific pedagogy, or how to integrate science and literacy. Districts can increase the focus of early elementary trainings and professional learning communities in science and integrated science and literacy. That's you, my friends. You can make a difference. You are a big piece of the puzzle. So our focus today is really on supporting you, giving you ideas. What can I do to take back to help educators make these shifts? All right, we are going to look at a little bit later after our national presenter, 2 observation rubrics that also will help you as you're working with educators. One looks at just what is this effective 3-dimensional instruction? What should we be seeing in the classroom? The other one looks at what is authentic science communication? So in other words, how does literacy authentically interact with science instruction? So these 2 rubrics we're going to explore after we get a good foundation from our national presenter. And I don't want to take any more time because, well, she's amazing. So we are going to head to science, instruction, and literacy. And our national presenter is Jen Gutierrez. And I met her when I was on her committee for NSTA. She was the division director over professional learning, and I was on the committee. I still am on the committee. My term, I think, ends in June, which is sad because it's been a wonderful experience. She's also a K-12 STEM education specialist and a customer success specialist for Activate Learning. And more importantly, she's a proud grandma. So with a beautiful little grandbaby. So I am going to unshare and you should be able to share, Jen, and I'll just let you move forward with your presentation. So jazz hands to welcome Jen. Woo, yay, Jen.
Oh, well, thank you.
Excitement, jazz hands. Woo.
Hi, everyone.
I'm not seeing the jazz hands.
Well, thank you. I'm just delighted to be here and talk about my favorite thing in the world. And I see a few names. Hi, Brett. Hi, Candace. And actually some of you look and your names are very familiar to me. I also got to represent Arizona, Colorado, and Utah on the NSTA Council. So I came to Provo for many years and enjoyed, bar none, the best state science conference. So I hope to get to come back again. I'm delighted to be here. Melissa and I have done a lot of work together, and every chance we get, we try to team up. And so she was sharing with me some of this amazing work you all are doing. I'm so impressed and excited for your kiddos in Utah, and asked if I would talk a little bit about some of the work I've done with literacy and science. And yeah, and Alyssa, my notes, my slides, I already shared everything with Melissa. Pardon my personal notes. I didn't know you guys are going to see those, so I hope I didn't say anything dorky. But anyway, I'm going to share. Fingers crossed, everything is going well here. We'll see. Let's see. I guess I should get back to the beginning, right? Here we go. Hold, please. All right, you let me know. I think. Let's see, hopefully I get to see you guys. So let's see how this goes. Melissa, you keep me posted. Oops, sorry. There we go. Everyone see the slides okay, Melissa? I see some faces, that's nice. Usually I lose the faces. So Melissa and I were talking, we just love to have conversations. And I love the segue into this conversation about authentic literacy and science education. And I've had quite an interesting and fun journey in education. I started in elementary for 18 years in the elementary classroom, and somehow along the way got recognized as go ask Jen, she's the science person on campus. I will tell you, I do not have a science degree, and many times let myself be intimidated by that, but I worked with a pretty amazing group a few years ago who assured me I'm a science teacher. And one of the things I think that you all probably can agree to is that our elementary teachers deserve a really big pat on the back for how hard they work to try to bring science into the classroom when they're very intimidated at times by that content. So one of the things I'm going to ask, and we can unmute if you want to, or we can share in the chat box. But I just want to confirm, Melissa, do you only see my slides or do you see my cheater notes too? Okay, good. Whew. Not that you couldn't look at them and know, right? But I thought we could take a minute and think about this. What obstacles do elementary teachers face when trying to teach science? So if you want to unmute, or if you, Melissa will help me monitor if hands are up or if you have signals, but I'd love to hear what some of the things that you're experiencing when you're working with your teachers and your sites and schools. Don't be shy.
I'll share. I noticed that teachers, the elementary teachers don't have the science background. So they are sometimes uneasy on the inquiries specifically, because if it's not exactly what might be in the TE or on the paper that they're reading from, then they get very nervous. So we don't have the science. We're not content specialists. That's been a challenge in our district. I
agree wholeheartedly. That was always, and still to this day, I panic and I phone a friend often because I think, oh, what if I'm going to lead them astray with their own content? So I wholeheartedly agree with that. Absolutely. Anyone else? I see some. I'm going to try to open the chat box and see. Yep. Time, supplies. Absolutely. I would say absolutely, Megan, Beverly, Brooke, time. I mean, I got to get it all in, right? I have to get it all in a day. And I think a lot of us will attest to the fact we were doing integration before it had a name, weren't we? Because that's how we get it all in. And so I think the conversations that Melissa and I were having, she shared with me the resources and research y'all have been looking into, and I'm just like, oh, I love this. This is so powerful. So one of the things I think about is this idea of, if I can make my slide go, let's see. Oops. There we go. Is maximizing effectiveness of those instructional minutes, right? So I'm gonna give you a minute, just kind of look at this. And when I look at this, what kind of comes to my brain and what I think about is that as an elementary teacher, I was given help for teaching math, for teaching ELA, that I remember. That was a very long time ago, just for the record. But what I didn't ever get help with was, how do I teach science? And I am going to throw myself under the bus and tell you, I thought I was supposed to teach science from that paper that said scientific method. I didn't know any better, but somewhere along the line, I got to go to a workshop that was a game changer for me. And it was an instructional method from a very dear friend called the 5E's instructional method. And it really helped me see how it was about the kids trying to figure things out. And so when I think about how do we give them time to actively engage in hands-on experiences while still attaining to all the things that have to happen for helping them with their literacy, right? And with their math. And I love this little circle. And I'll just tell you, I stole this and I'm going to show where you can steal it from too. Wonderful friend of Melissa and mine. Read, write, speak, listen, research, report, observe, ask, question, make claims, support claims with evidence. Those are the foundations of those things we want them to be able to do in science. But we know as elementary teachers, that's where they live in their ELA work too, isn't it? And so how do we support teachers and help them feel confident to do that while still strengthening those ELA skills? And we're going to go a little deeper into it. And I will reiterate what Melissa said. We're not advocating to take away any of those foundational skills times, that explicit phonics time. That's essential. We know that. But at some point, the kiddos have to start practicing that. And it is most effective, research says, when it's in the context of something. So thinking about that, I came across this piece and it really spoke to me. And I was so excited to share it with Melissa. We had a lot of fun talking about it. I did include the link in my slides. This actually comes from Australia, but I thought, wow, this speaks to exactly what we're talking about today. Literacy in science is not the same as scientific literacy, but the two are extremely interconnected and very essential to one another. So I'm gonna give you a minute to look at this and think about literacy in science and what that refers to. So thinking about that understanding, synthesizing and communicating science content knowledge, right? Building the conceptual understanding and being able to speak to it, being able to explain what we think. And that reading, the writing, those are all those things that Melissa talked about, that report from those chief officers talked exactly about, right? So then thinking about this next piece, scientific literacy referring to, there it is, that word, right? Understanding those phenomena and the processes. So taking those two together, and really, I just loved the statement. I apologize. Some of these were a little long, but I couldn't cut them down. I wanted you to really get that wow factor. First, engage in literate practices to develop their understanding of scientific concepts. So putting it another way, they're developed better together. They don't need to live in isolation. And I think that's the really big message, I would say, that throughout this journey that we're all working on to get more science in our elementary classrooms through literacy, through supporting that big journey. It's the multiple resources. It's the multiple, what did we say yesterday when we were talking, Melissa? Entry points, right? It can't just be this one and done living in an isolated place. And I think one of our favorite, Nell Duke, is going to reaffirm that. And so I had a lot of fun with that piece. And I just want to peek at the chat for a minute. Really important point, Beverly. Teachers are not curriculum developers. And man, I'll tell you, I hate developing curriculum. Absolutely. It's just not my forte. I don't like that, but I love implementing it. I love supporting teachers implementing it and digging into it and trying to figure it out. Because to me, at the end of the day, it speaks to the standards. What do the standards say a student needs to know, right? And so that's such an important piece, Beverly, because I think teachers are left so often to be the one to try to develop it because there isn't a piece for it. So I'm seeing, yes, Scott couldn't agree more. Lack of emphasis from the administrative. It's just not, it's not on everyone's top priority like ours. So the goal, I thought, Melissa and I loved reading all the work you've been doing and preparing for this. So how do we create authentic, integrated teaching and learning opportunities and experiences to support literacy in science? Because that's where our kiddos live, isn't it? So I thought, well, let's start. Let's always start with the research. What does the research say? So Melissa shared with me this fantastic document that you all have been working from, the science and engineering in preschool through elementary grades. I love the reports that come out of the national academies because they're thought-provoking. They give you lots of ammo, if you will, but they also really give you something to work with. And so I thought in chapter 6, specifically, those potentials and pitfalls of integration, because integration scares the heck out of some people, even though that's really where we live in elementary. But I liked that it talked about the content integration, about specific domains, and what does that look like with the language and literacy, mathematics and computational thinking. And then so essential and incredibly important that can't be put on the back burner is that equity across integration. So what I did was, with the help of a wonderful friend who also served on the committee with Melissa and I, who's now the chair, Kimberly Astle out of Washington, had put some really neat slides together to review these pieces of this report. So thinking about those superficial connections, the add-on or the sequential. And so kind of thinking about like this, and this I believe was me very early on in my teaching. The topic of animals, so my kids did an animal report. In the context for reading, but only the reading standards were addressed. I really didn't help my kids dig deeper to understand anything about the animal in particular. It's the environment where it lived, its ecosystem, its interdependencies, its ability to survive, any of those things that were tied to some more scientific and conceptual understanding. So they lived by themselves for the sake of, well, my kids have to do some reading and writing and it needs to have context, right? And one of the things Melissa and I talked about yesterday when we were looking through these types of integration, they are by no means a matrix where, okay, you're not doing it right if you're only at number 2, if you're doing partial, or if you're doing full. It's not a matrix or a race to get there. It's about, sometimes this is where I'm at, and it's partial today or for this part of the lesson. But as I grow or evolve, or I'm growing in my craft, then I might see myself in more of a full integration. So I like the way Kimberly put these pictures together. Maybe it's really heavy in reading right now and a little bit of science, or maybe it's equal. And I know now as a teacher, and when I'm working with other educators, I'm becoming so much more confident and comfortable with thinking about, okay, when I think about the cross-cutting concepts or the science and engineering practices that are going on, for example, if my students are asking questions, planning or carrying out investigations, constructing explanations, right? I'm starting to think those things really tie right to some of the skills they should be doing in reading. And I'm going to go to a further explanation of that as we go on. So then I looked at this full integration piece, and I'm sure a lot of you are already going, oh, I'm thinking PBL, real problem, problem-based, project-based. And it's going to require the students to bring in different domains to really see how it's connected. And sometimes it's less structured and can feel a little scary and unsure what's going on. So again, it's not that matrix where you have to be here, then here, or here, then here, then here. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. But thinking about what's going on and what pieces am I going to bring in. So here are these literacy pieces that I'm going to rely on as an early learner, both in ELA and those literacy pieces in science to make sense of science, because I think we could all agree science is a second language for everyone, right? And then this other piece, interdisciplinary integration. And Melissa and I had a lot of fun looking at, look what's going on in reading, and look what's going on in science. And then look what's going on in both of them. And they all support one another. And they come to this place where, while each domain has its own structured block of time and standards, but there's still this opportunity to connect with the practices, with the cross-cutting concepts, and most definitely a phenomena or maybe an engineering problem. But again, it's a place where it gives teachers a little bit more confidence and opportunity to go, hey, I think I'm doing a little bit of that. And I promise we're going to show you examples that you will be able to use with your group. So you don't have to recreate them. They are authentic examples from classrooms Kimberly's worked with. And so I was very excited to show you these, so that, because they're an open resource and you don't have to recreate, but my guess is you have lots, I'm sure, of your own experiences. So here's some promising things to think about. And this was kind of frustrated me a little bit too, but even though research is limited and obviously varies in quality, because we know that with elementary science, right? There are promising principles for connecting science and engineering with the other domains. And I thought these were pretty awesome, promising principles. And that came from that report we talked about. Engaging children in investigation and design experiences that draw on multiple domains. Make integration explicit in their designs and teaching. Be explicit when we're talking about it. And supporting children's knowledge in individual disciplines, because we know when that transfer of knowledge occurs, that's where real knowledge and understanding happens. And again, see this, I love this. More integration is not necessarily better. It doesn't mean you have to always be at the highest one, right? And then this other piece that really spoke to me and we said we would talk about was working towards that equity and integration. I'm going to give you just a moment to read these bullets that came from that report that really, really just resonated with me. And I thought, wow, isn't this neat to really think about when we give kids opportunities for integration, it gives them an opportunity to see other opinions, other ideas, other suggestions, and it allows for other ideas to come into play. But again, thinking about working towards that equity and integration across the domains and thinking, how can I fit? So that's the research, right? And that doesn't mean every teacher wants to hear all the research. They're just like, just show me how to do it, or tell me, just show me how to do it and I'll do it, right? How many times have you heard that? Just tell me how to do it and I'll do it. And so here's where I think about, well, this is where they live. How do I optimize the instructional time, Jen? How do I do that? I've got to teach 7 subjects and I have 28 6-year-olds. So lay it on me. So here's some things to think about. How to get the most bang for your buck. High expectations for all students. So that means thinking about, Melissa and I we were deep in a conversation talking about this, those multiple entry points. So if we got kiddos who are being pulled out for special support services, second language learners, other IEP responsibilities, don't pull them out during science time, right? That's when they leave, because no one's going to pull them out during your math or your reading block. So how about if science is living in other parts of the day too, so that they have access to that and the same high expectations. And again, all students getting the opportunity to make sense of phenomena or real world problems, and revisiting those. Look at the DCIs. What are they saying a kiddo should, what are they saying a student should know, right? And how can I use those science and engineering practices to have them engaging with that standard, that phenomena, and those cross-cutting concepts? Not only do they help you cross against the science disciplines, they help you cross against all the disciplines as well. And I thought this was really important. Modified materials or modified instruction, it doesn't mean substituting rich experiences with memorization of facts. Science has moved from learning about to figuring out. And so if I'm not given the opportunity to try to figure these things out for myself, and I'm simply memorizing, you can say this if you want, you can tell anyone. The world according to Jen, a test is not application. It's a test, right? I memorized it, and I'll just tell you, I was terrible at memorizing facts, and I still am. I need to experience it to understand it. And then I think this is a really important thing to remember and really support your teachers. Building coherence within these instructional units and within it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight, but we have to build it within the grade band and then from year to year. Because remember too, a lot of times, what if you're the first experience the child's having with science? So we're having to build that within and across. And then another thing about how do I get the most bang for my buck? When you start with a phenomena, your starting point is a phenomena. Give the kids that thought that, okay, well, what if I don't have enough understanding from previous years so that I can do it? Instead, help the activities that you do in the class, the investigations, the readings, the support, they're going to help build towards that understanding of it. It's okay if they don't come in and right away can go, okay, I already know all of that. And I think those are probably all for you all with your expertise going, absolutely. And Melissa, I meant to add, it was a report you had shared with me. I think that you all had already looked at it, but sorry, I forgot to add the report title. I missed that one. So I'm going to take a pause, Melissa, and see if anyone has some thoughts about, how it's going and what are you thinking when you think about talking with my teachers? How are they feeling about this idea of integration? Are they feeling okay with it? Are you feeling overwhelmed by it? I don't know. Tell me what you think so far. Sorry, I think my husband's mowing the lawn. Melissa, do we have anyone with hands up or anything? Sorry, I also had to shut off my camera because no, I do not have business on the bottom.
I'm wondering
have a-
who's been working. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Renee.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, this is all really exciting, and I love the PBL prospects. And I think, like, to me, that's the only way to actually hit all of our standards in all of these different content areas. But I get nervous because to implement PBL well, that requires like a whole nother skill set of training of like how to implement PBLs well. And we also have to like build teachers' skill set and confidence in teaching science. And so I love that. I think PBL is the way to go. It makes me nervous. And like, how do we do it? And how do we build all of our teachers' capacity to be able to teach in that way?
Yeah, and you know what, Renee, you bring up such an important point. It's about the professional learning support they get, isn't it? Right? Don't just give me all these new ideas or this new curriculum with no professional learning support to implement it, because that's taking on a lot about a brand new approach to doing something. And it's great to see it or see examples of it, but to really get to delve into the process of understanding it is really important. That's a great.
There are a few good, there's some comments that are really good about Lynn says, teachers we work with seem to love the idea, but want to see more of the how, which is what we're going to investigate now and what you'll see in the model lessons for the that we're here.
Yeah, and so Lynn, you'll have access to those slides, honey, that you can share with your teachers, because I wanted you guys to have something that like literally was ready to go that you could share with teachers, and you could show classroom examples of those different, I guess if you want to say levels of integration. Yeah. And then the iPhone said, yep, absolutely. We're not the developers of curriculum, and then we're asked to integrate it. And it's a complex task that takes time and training. And I think that is so, well, that's why I got into it, professional learning, because honestly, I think that's the key to success for all teaching and learning experiences, is what kind of support are our teachers getting? And we know as elementary teachers, we weren't getting it in science, not unless we went and sought it ourselves. And I agree, Nate, integration saves time, but it takes time to figure out. Because what if you think you're doing it and then you're like, well, I don't know if I'm doing it justice. I don't know if I'm giving these kids opportunities more than just writing an animal report. Because I can tell you, I didn't dig deep enough in the science to help my kiddos really make some conceptual understanding of any scientific concept. But man, we sure had a lot of fun writing animal reports, right? Exactly. And so I think you all got a chance to watch the Nell Duke video, the relationship between literacy and science implications. And so I absolutely loved and enjoyed.
Years since we watched it, so
oh, well, definitely watch it again, because what I decided to do is I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna tell you my aha moments when I went through it, because I thought this really speaks to exactly what you all have been working on. And so what you know about the text has an enormous impact on your ability to comprehend it, right? That totally makes sense, doesn't it? It totally makes sense. So in that second part to that is it affects how we handle the vocabulary, the new vocabulary, the inferences we make, and how we handle those incoherencies. So the reason that stuck out to me so much is because I feel like if our kiddos are learning to read, they're working that out, they're building that understanding, and they are having those foundational skills and that time with explicit phonics, but they're not using it in the context of something. We're not giving them any time to develop understanding, to own new vocabulary, to try to make sense. And we know that science texts for the littles can come in different forms, right? It can come from informational storybooks. It can come from stories, and I'm going to share some great resources for you, but it can come from a science textbook. And I might be able to read those words. I had a little boy, Manuel, I had him kindergarten, first, second grade. BTW, he cried every single solitary day in kindergarten. So I told him in first grade he couldn't cry anymore. He could read it in ninth grade level. I kid you not. He also came into kindergarten speaking only Spanish, and he became very fluent. But somewhere I had failed him. I hadn't helped him understand what those words meant that he was reading. So he would do phenomenal. He was beautiful when he would read aloud to the class, but struggled very hard to make sense of those words meant. So being able to engage with the text and be able to make sense of it is really, really essential. So right there speaks back to where we started with that statement from the Australian group about literacy in science. And then again, we talked about those unique features that are meant to support science understanding. And Nell uses this firsthand is known as hands-on, secondhand also involving texts. I loved that. I thought that was so awesome because that speaks to where we live too as elementary teachers. We love books, don't we? We love books. We love stories. We love informational text. Melissa and I are going to run a little fun experiment next time we're around a first grade class. Send them to the library. I promise you, most of them will come back with informational text because they love books about real things, don't they? And then I loved this, so I wrote this down. Well, of course, that we need them both. We need kids to do hands-on and we need opportunities to involve with the text. And I've got some great tips for that too. But Nell said no teaching science in isolation. And I put it in red because Nell said. And so I loved that about how she's talking about making sense of the text and how important it is. And that's where we live as elementary teachers. And then we brought in this second piece that you all had looked at from another very dear friend, Oki Lee, when she did a presentation on integrating science and language. And she talks often about everyday language and specialized language. And they're very, very unique and very different, but students need to experience that specialized language in the context of talking with their friends, like these two little kiddos, making sense, trying to answer a driving question. I loved this picture. This particular word wall is helping the kids understand, what do these tools of science mean? What do they look like? And what would I use them for? And so there's lots of opportunities for them to engage. And I love, they can even take it out of the pocket. So this is that traditional thinking. And this is something, I think this is a really good place to start with teachers and think about this. Traditional thinking says that language is a precursor or prerequisite for doing science. I will tell you right now, nothing makes me angrier when I hear this. I used to engage in argument every day, almost faithfully, with my wonderful friend who was the ELA specialist when we were both at the Department of Ed. And she said, kids have to understand that language first before they can jump into science. And I was like, wow, that's wrong. Because no, science is a second language for everybody. So let's all jump in there and start to make sense of it together. Let's talk through things.
I'd still need to be in language acquisition courses if that was true. I would still need to be in the language acquisition courses
right?
if that was true.
Yeah.
I still need to learn more language if I needed to know all the science vocabulary.
Right. Well, exactly. And to me, it feels very, the very exact opposite of what an equitable science education means, because so you're not going to let me come in because I don't speak the words or understand the words that you do. That seems very alienating. But instead, what Oki suggests is let's make language a product of doing the science. And that's why I thought this was such a beautiful example of the language going on in that classroom is part of the learning, and the kids are developing it together, because contemporary strategies include experiences and learning disciplinary meaning along with learning the language and the use and development. So that means in our elementary classrooms, and going back to, I think it was Nate said, I think people like the idea of integrating, but what does that look like? So really, I mean, I think about something like this as simple as give the kids time to talk to each other. What do those words mean? This notion of front-loading vocabulary in science in particular, it doesn't have any strength because I don't own those words yet. I don't know what they mean. But if you let me work through them, and then like in this example, the kids got to see examples of what these tools mean. Now I can start to put understanding together. So a little bit of further guidance. I pulled your standards, and I got to be involved in so much of the amazing work you guys were all doing when you were developing your seed standards for science. And so I just pulled kindergarten, first and second, and I know they're really tiny to see, but you'll have this slide. But I loved when I was looking at these and what they were saying. So it's saying obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information in K2 built on prior experiences, using observations and texts to communicate new information. And all these things, look at it says that, and I know you know these well, but I think these are great. This is great evidence for you to use, you know, to convince these teachers, guys, reading grade appropriate text. Why can't they be science too? Using media to obtain scientific and technical information to determine patterns in the evidence. Aren't we looking for patterns when we learn to read too? Describing how specific images support the data. So again, there, look at this, time to talk. And that's what we're trying to get them to do when we're working on those foundational skills. So as we're building those foundational skills and we want to apply them to something, why not make them something that has to do with science? And so a lot of times people ask me, well, where do you work it in? You know, I know there's a lot of schools of thought about how do you run your literacy block. The only way I knew how to do mine, because I had 28 children with 28 different reading abilities, was I put them into rotations. And so when they worked with me on the explicit stuff, my other kiddos were working in centers that were authentic, that were about sense making and trying to understand something. And so why not use those science pieces we had talked about, or those books that we had read about? And again, when I brought up your core standards for ELA, I also found that Nell had said literacy supports science learning. Science supports literacy learning. And I love, look at, well, there's science right there, right? And so I pulled these up because I just wanted to give you a minute while I was talking too much for you to look at those. And they're the same for me in Arizona, very similar. I think we have a different name now. But I'll just say this, as a former K-4 classroom teacher, those foundational skills, they need to be practiced over and over and over. And when that work is supported in the context of something like science, a phenomena they're trying to figure out, carries a lot more meaning, carries a lot more personal connections for students. And they're a lot more interested because let's see, the foundationals, we've got the print concepts, phonological awareness, phonics and word recognition, and fluency. So while I'm working through those things with kiddos in a group explicitly, I need them to go try to work on something and practice those over and over and over. And rarely are kids dialed out. No, I had never in 18 years had a kid tell me, I don't want to do the science right now. They love it. I'm going to stop for a sec because I want to read some of these. Scott said, yes, absolutely, Scott. They remember it better when they got a chance to do it themselves, right? Because it's called ownership. And now that word means something to me. I love that. And that's another good thing to share with teachers. I love that, Jared. Yep, absolutely. A great way to honor those different backgrounds, to honor different knowledge. Where I live in Arizona, we have a very large American Indian population. They have a very different belief system. I'm not going to tell them that it's not right, but let's work through and understand where you're coming from so we can share some of our experiences together. Let's see, Renee says, oh, I love that. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I always think, Renee, that phenomena driven also invites everyone in. That's a great way to invite everyone into this. And I'll tell you, these 3 questions will buy you a ton of cred with kids. What do you see? What do you notice? What do you wonder? Ask a kiddo that when they see a phenomena or they watch something or see a demo. What do you see? What do you notice? What do you wonder? Because you know what? There are no wrong answers. And kids get so excited because all of a sudden they start talking. And, you know, depending on their ability level at or you know, grade level with their writing, they're excited and they want to talk. So maybe you're scribing it, or maybe they're writing it, or maybe they're drawing it. But boy, I'll tell you what, they'll tell you what they see, notice, and wonder. And so I love that. Absolutely. Yes. Making it real, making it relevant. You know, where I live outside of Phoenix. Something like snow is not super relevant to some of my students. So what can I do? What can I bring to them that makes this concept, this phenomena, relevant to them? So yeah, absolutely. That's a really important piece that we have to remind ourselves of. So when Nell says this, it speaks to my heart because I firmly believe this. Students should be learning to read while reading to learn. They should. It should not live in isolation. I told you I sat next to the ELA gal I no, she never was able to share me any research that said, gotta learn all those, gotta learn first, how to read, how to write, how to speak before you can do science. So I firmly believe, and you can say the world according to Jen, but I just think that it's so essential. And then I came across this, and I think this is really important. I do a lot of work with helping teachers. Okay, how do I use literature books and picture books to push more science? And while it's not always the most rigorous, it's a foot in the door, and I'll take that to get it going, because check this out. The single most important activity for future reading success, reading aloud. Seriously, isn't that incredible? Reading aloud. And what I think is so important about that is, and this is a place, this is where you can win the hearts of many elementary teachers. For those of us who, we love the read aloud, right? We love the notion and the benefits that it brings. We model reading strategies. We help with comprehension. We help with that ability to listen. We invite kids in. A book invites children in. And when I was the K-12 science specialist for my district for many years, I would go to the middle school and high school, and they would say, Miss G, did you bring a book? Kids love to be read to. And so when you think about, what if no one's reading to them at home? Right? That is so important, because we have such a wonderful gift to give kids, is share those books, share those stories. I have a great resource for you too. And I'm very excited to share that, the work that this gal did. So that's just, I had to put that in because Melissa and I were talking about how important the read aloud is and how essential that is in our early classroom. So I'm going to pull up I want to look at the great comments for a minute, Melissa. You holler if I miss one. Yes, I agree. Utah Hogle Zoo. I think it makes more sense. I think the whole world should be taught through the science lens. Yeah, because it's real world and it matters. And it's about me, right? We know little kids. I think it's about everybody. I don't think just little kids, right? Yeah, absolutely, Maggie. Yep, love it. Love it. Yeah, I agree. You have to learn the vocabulary within, and academic language grows organically. I love that, Maggie. What a nice way to say it. I'm going to make that a bumper sticker. When I'm not teaching anymore, I'm going to be a bumper sticker maker. Still everybody's great quotes. I love that. I just think that is so, it just makes me really be happy when I'm around people who think and feel the same passion. I've been working with a group, and kindergarten, first and second grade teachers. And I was sharing with Melissa, I was working with the kindergarten students, and we were talking about living and non-living. And we were working through, and we did this great book together, both an informational text and a storybook. And we talked about those things. I was floored how many of those children did not understand the concept of living and non-living, and came home and told my son and his beautiful wife, oh, this granddaughter of mine will go to kindergarten knowing living and non-living. But again, those little peeps, you have to have those conversations, right? They have to have the opportunity to participate in that. So some additional resources. I promised Melissa I would not leave without giving lots of good resources. And so you'll have links to all of these. And these are, again, this is from our dear friend, Kimberly Astle. She's the Associate Director of Elementary Science in Washington. And what she set up on each of these, I'm not going to go into there right now because, it'll take us away from, I'm going to go to one link. But these are great resource sets to help your teachers. These are ready to go, ready for you to share and use. So if you have any questions, you just let Melissa know. And I think I have my email. Let's talk about how would I work that through, Jen? What would a 2-hour workshop look like, or a webinar? Let's talk about those ideas. Again, to integrating science with ELA resources. She's created these beautiful collections. And then a collection of resources of all NGSS topics. So what she did, you'll also have access to her slides. she did a presentation at NSTA in Seattle and made it an open ed resource for everyone. So her slides are in there. When you open them, you're going, hey, Jen stole that. Yes, I did. And so I want you to as well, because it's kind of already put together for you. I'm literally almost ready to rumble with a great integration session with your team. And then another one, this is my all-time favorite right now. I'm loving this thing and I'm sharing it everywhere I go. And it's a comprehensive list of children's literature aligned to the NGSS standards. This gal, Courtney Woods, she's a master's candidate of curriculum and instruction at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I've got that link down there. It's also a link in my slides and in your notes, but she's got interactive read alouds and she aligns it to the NGSS, the DCIs, and talks about just a quick little synopsis, so you know what you're getting into. These are wonderful opportunities for read alouds. Maybe they're listening centers at one of your rotations and stations. But I know teachers panic and they're like, oh my God, I don't have time to find all these books. I don't even know what kind of book would support that concept. But what I really love about this interactive read aloud is she does it for you. And it's such a great tool. And if you're already looking it up, you're already like, golden nugget, I need that. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. If you have questions, I loved reading your comments. I'm going to stop sharing. If anyone has any questions, or feel free to unmute, or if you have some great personal stories to share, please feel free. Yeah, if I steal it, I promise to give you credit. You're muted, Melissa. Oh, there we go.
Something that I think teachers, we need to point out to them in the core guides, that right by the standard, it gives the NGSS alignment, so that when we use these resources, because there are lots of national resources out there, we know exactly which ones will support our seed standards.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen for a minute.
Hey, Melissa,
Uh-huh.
maybe we should add that link to the core guide so teachers don't have to go searching somewhere else for it, for those read alouds or something.
Yeah.
That would really help them.
I think they would love those, Beverly. They're just, that's my go-to right now. And I want to send that gal a note and say, man, really nice work.
So, I think you're seeing, are you seeing the core guide page now? So right at the top of each standard, so I'm scrolling back up because assessment's at the bottom. So here's our standard. It gives you the standard NGSS correlation, so that you can take that read aloud and just say, oh, I just need to find this section in that read aloud list. And then I'll have books that relate on grade level to the science or engineering concept that I'm working with. So I think that should be very useful.
Can I say something really quick about those books? So we also have to be careful though, because I would love integrating literacy and science. That's every lesson has something with a book or something, especially that K2 band. But like, you gotta be careful because we do have those, I'm spacing on my word right now, your boundaries of your proficiency scale, right? Or of your standard. And those books some books go into more detail, like some of you. So you just have to be careful. Like, I honestly wouldn't link that. It's a great resource, but I wouldn't link it to our core guides because it can give the wrong impression that that book really goes with that standard when really it might go beyond.
I think that's a good point, Brooke, that we need to remember. We're the professional in the classroom, and we need to know, if this book touches on this, but also goes over here, I'm going to keep my discussion focused on this part that is relevant to the standard. That's part of being a professional. I think you're right. do we have any other questions for Jen about science and integration with literacy? Okay, we want to thank Jen for being here and coming and doing this for, you know, such a huge stipend, zero. So for doing it as a favor to me. So we appreciate you, Jen. We appreciate
Yeah.
resources. That is one thing that teachers are asking for is resources. So I think this gives us some good things to really sift through
Good.
and some great ideas. So thank you very much. Can everyone give Jen a round of applause?
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate the great comments. It always make, I leave feeling energized, and I need that right now because I have to go get my second shingle shot. So I could use the positive energy right now. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you so much for being here. Oh, we appreciate you
Bye, guys.
for your time. Okay, friends, we got kind of a background and things that we can share with our teachers and administrators as to the why, because I think a big part of our battle is administrators saying, oh, we're not going to teach science this year. Or I was in a school this week, I will not name which district. I went into the school to observe some STEM teaching, and I had a little 5th grade student was my guide, taking me around, showing me. And so I said to her, I said, so how often do you get to do science? Just love science. How often do you get to do it? She said, oh yeah, we get to do science on Friday. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? You're at a STEM school and we're doing science on Friday? You know, thankfully I had a mask on so she couldn't see my jaw drop. That was a good use of a mask at that point. Was really glad I was wearing one. And that's 5th grade. That's not K2. That's 5th grade. Oh, we do science on Friday, under an hour, once a week on Friday. So I think, you know, some of these resources we might need to share with administrators. And that's where you as district or LEA supervisors have more access and more cred than do the classroom teachers to help to help our administrators see, we need to start thinking about how can we really authentically use integration to make sure science is part of the curriculum.
Melissa, maybe they were integrating it so well that the child did not know that they were having science because it was integrated into the other area.
There you go. Yep, their whole week schedule on the board, it was so integrated, it just didn't show up. That's a good point, Maggie. We can go with that. So right now, what we're going to do is look at some tools that might help us get more literacy in the classroom. Remember, we're not talking about phonics. Those are foundational ELA skills. That's a different thing. We're talking about authentic uses of literacy in science. How are we speaking, listening, reading, and writing in authentic ways in science? So I'm going to share a resource with you. Then we're going to go into breakout rooms. You'll get to select what grade you want to watch, and you'll watch videos of Utah teachers who are working on this integration. So we're not confused, Ricky and I decided to call it authentic science communication. So how are we authentically communicating in science? And you'll be able to have discussions, use the rubrics and watch these videos. And then you'll have these resources that you can share with your teachers. So hang on, I'm gonna escape. So what does effective science and effective science communication look like? Well, we have a rubric for science that really looks at the science piece, because when Jen was talking, she was talking about this idea that we have scientific literacy and we have this idea of literacy. How are we literate in science? And so how are those going to work together? So for this idea of science piece, We have an observation rubric that says, you know, learning is connected to questions about phenomena. So what are we seeing in maybe less effective to more effective practices? This idea of students engaging in learning tasks that utilize the 3 dimensions to help them make sense in science. So we have some from less effective to more effective, a rubric. And then we have this idea of when we talk to our educators, you know, what are they doing in their planning? And how maybe might we make, you know, how they're planning more for science instruction, more effective for science. So there's a rubric that focuses on 3-dimensional science teaching, what we're observing in the class. There's also a rubric that we'll be going into depth on right now that looks at this idea of authentic science communication. So there's this piece of what should we see the students doing during science? How do we know we're really working on literacy and science together? So what does discourse or speaking and listening look like from maybe less effective to more effective? What does reading in science look like? Another kind of continuum for creating text. We didn't call it writing in science because there's so much confusion about, well, writing must mean I'm only writing words. And we know in science texts, we have figures, we have charts, we have diagrams, along with the written word. So we need to be thinking about what are the texts of science? So how are we creating texts in science? And then we have the other kind of perspective of, so these first 3 lines are, what should we see the student doing? What should students be doing during science instruction? Then the last line, the 4th line is, so what then should the teacher be doing? So it kind of flips it. So what should we be seeing from the teacher to support, to have instruction that explicitly scaffolds the development of authentic communication in science? So during instruction. So we're going to look at those 2 things. And we're going to do that through some viewing snippets. I mean, each of these lessons was, you know, probably anywhere from a half hour to an hour and 10 minutes. You're going to view snippets that your facilitator for the room will work with you on. So you get to choose, do I want to see a kindergarten, a 1st grade, a 4th grade, or a 5th grade lesson? These were all done by Utah teachers. The lesson plans were all written by Utah teachers. And they're all trying to hit this nice balance of how do I authentically have my kids, you know, communicate in science to gain literacy and science at the same time. So we'll go into our Zoom room, breakout groups. The facilitator will introduce the context. So this is the lesson. This is the context of the lesson. Here, then this is the portion that we are going to observe of this lesson sequence. You, as the participants in the room, will select a role. So you'll either choose the science rubric or one of the 4 lines in the literacy, the science communication rubric. And you're going to become an expert in that piece. So you need to really read across the science rubric. You have more to read, but it's also probably more familiar. So your job is to become an expert on that piece. Watch the video. As you watch the video, you're going to think what continuum from maybe less effective to more effective would I place this instruction? And it's not about judging the teacher. It's about saying right now, this is where we would say authentic communication or authentic science instruction is. And this is the evidence I have for why I'm going to put this here for this 10-minute snippet of the video. What might I do to support this teacher in moving to a step that's maybe more highly effective? So where would the next step be that I go? In the shared notes, you'll see a table for each one of those breakout rooms. So if you go to maybe kindergarten and you choose the science role, you're going to write down the big ideas of the science role here, and then where would you place the instruction right now? What's your evidence? where might the next step be to support shifts in instruction that are more effective? Okay, so in our notes, you'll have all of these. Let's come down to, by the way, make sure that you've either signed in here or used the Google form, okay? So that we know who's here today. Down in our section on effective science instruction, you'll see here are the 2 rubrics. These are the breakout room options with the links take you to the either the folder or the lesson plan. Sometimes the lesson plan had some, you know, some graphic organizers or something that went with it, so they're in a folder. Then the instructions, again, for your breakout rooms, which your facilitator will walk you through. There are also links to the full videos that you have. And then here's where you're going to select, you know, if I'm in 1st grade and I'm looking at discourse in science, here's where I write the things down, okay? After you've watched the video, then you'll have about 2 minutes each in your group to share out and have a discussion facilitated by your room facilitator. Is everyone able to access the shared notes? Okay. That is fabulous. So it is 2:20. So we're going to spend 35 minutes. So we'll come back at 2:55. I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. Hopefully all your room facilitators are here. I think I've seen them all. And they'll get you going. I'll see you back at 2:55. With hopefully you've had a chance to really kind of dig in and think about how do I integrate science and authentic literacy or communication. Okay, let me open up the breakout rooms, my friends. If you need help getting to a breakout room, just put it in the chat and I will move you. But I'm going to open all rooms right now and I'll see you at 2:55. Does anyone want me to move them? I'm happy to move you finding it.
Melissa, kindergarten was room 1, right?
Yes, kindergarten
Thank
room.
Melissa, our internet is really bad today. And so it didn't open a breakout room for me.
Where would you like to go, Jenny?
Say again? 5th?
Okay, you want to go to 5th grade?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Bev. It's so nice to see you. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing much better. Still in recovery, but doing pretty good. So,
Glad you're doing better. I've thought a lot about you.
well, thanks. I'm gonna try and bump into this room. So,
Great.
Hey, Melissa, can you put iPhone into the kindergarten room, room 1?
yeah,
Yes,
it's,
I will.
it's not letting me join. I don't know. There we go. I think I got it.
Sure.
Hey, Scott, you finding a room to join or are you just hanging out with me?
I'm just gonna hang out. I'm good.
Cool. Alicia, do you need help? Elisa? She's gonna hang out with us too.
She might have stepped away.
Yeah.
Candace is back.
Hola, Candace. Do you need help going somewhere? You're muted, my friend, but I love you.
Thank you. I need the folder.
Okay, so in the notes,
Yeah, it's in the
It's in
notes.
you'll see if you want the lesson plan, is that what you're looking for? Or are you
Yeah,
looking
yeah. What,
for
okay,
in the notes? So in that section in the notes,
okay, let me, are the notes in your email? Is that where they are?
so are you in the slide deck?
Oh, no. So give me
Oh.
a second.
Okay, hang on. I'll
There's a
just put
link
it
for the
in.
notes. Link for the notes in the
Scott
chat.
is fast. That's why I put him on that duty. Because
Thank
he's
you.
fast. So that should, if you scroll down to this section, Candace, you'll have the video links to all the videos and the links to all the lesson plans are for.
Okay, hang on. Oh, there we go. My window wasn't on my whole, anyway, it was messed up. Okay, I just want to make sure I have everything. Yeah. Okay, got it.
Cool.
Okay, and then you're down to, is Matt, is Jen's session on here too, her slide deck?
Who's?
Yeah.
Jen?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jen
Jen
gives you- yeah.
Gutierrez, yeah. It's integrated into our session. She just wanted to run the slides herself, so she.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I'm on the page now. Thank you. All right.
There's a
let me
link
see.
for the slides too, I think.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that's the slide. Okay, thank you. Okay. No, I'm gonna go back. I'll check the breakouts. Thank you.
See you. Oh, we have about equal numbers in all of them. That's good.
Nice.
Cool.
Let's see that. No, I had to do observations in classrooms yesterday. I went to 2 different 6th grade ELA classes, and they're both working on arguing from evidence, right? Making claims based on evidence. And in one of them, the arguments they had for them, the kids to select for were really science-based. You know, do we really need zoos today? Are national parks important? Or, you know, they went through all these different things that at least had a science bent to them. The other one, the one the kids were all picking was, should students be paid to go to school? And you'll never guess how they all argued. Yes.
Shocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they said, no, we shouldn't. No.
Yeah. One of the kids was talking about how kids would be more motivated because you're paying them to go there. And I go, I know people get paid to go to work every day and they are not more motivated.
Oh my, these meetings are up stressful. I'm gonna hit pause on my record right now because we don't need to see 35 minutes of resume. Here we go. Okay, so my friends, hopefully you had some things to think about today about, you know, what science and science, authentic science communication might look like in the classroom. Hopefully you got some ideas that you can share with your educators. And to be honest, I think a big thing, one of the big things that I'm hoping you got out of Jen's presentation is we may need to take a more active role with our administrators and help them see the importance of this and help them see that research does support, we need science instruction. That's an important thing. Because right now I think there's a lot of not science instruction going on, which, you know, other things are great too, but research is saying that science instruction does support better outcomes in other disciplines as well. So why would we, you know, want to disadvantage students by not teaching science? So some things to think about. I'm wondering if, first of all, you can do jazz hands for your room facilitators. Woo! Thank you, room facilitators. They put a lot of effort into this. They've spent a lot of time getting things ready. Realize all these resources were made by Utah educators, for Utah educators. So that's kind of cool. I like that. And I'm wondering in closing, if you'll go into the shared notes and put down, just to help us kind of see, you know, where we're at, what was your biggest insight from today? And what, if anything, would you implement for improving the quality or amount of science instruction that's currently happening in your context? So let me escape out. In your notes at the very end, if you will just take a second to write Your final thoughts in here, your biggest insight from today, and what you will implement to support improving quality and or amount of science instruction in your context, if that's appropriate. Like, you may not be in a role where that is applicable. That will help us as the advisory team as we think about what to do for our final one in May. Okay, my friends? So I'm going to give you 48 seconds to get these in, and then we're going to close. So 48 seconds. And
Melissa, are we able to use these video links to share with other teachers?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
They're all meant for you, for your use. Okay, you're down to 21 seconds. Type fast. Okay, my friends, you can finish up your thoughts while I'm finishing talking. So today our learning intentions were really to give you some evidence, some research and some evidence as to why we should be teaching science, and then think about how we can do it through this idea of integration. ELA is a big deal right now. So how can we try to fit this together and better student outcomes all the way around? We tried to give you some ideas, lesson plans, model lessons, because teachers are saying, we don't know how. Well, now you have some lessons, and we'll try to make more to help you get started on that road. Please, if you start making some resources, let us know so that we can share them. I appreciate all that you're doing. This is hard work, and I appreciate your dedication. I know you're here because you really want what's in the best interest of our educators and our students. So thank you, thank you. I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to come to the Combine tomorrow from 1 to 3. We have some good things about implementing new standards for tomorrow, okay? So have a great day. Thanks for your participation, everyone. Okay.